At 6:47 in the morning on August 1st, 1943, Lieutenant Colonel Addison Baker and Major John Jerstad climbed into their B-24 Liberator airplane called Hells, Wench at an airfield in Benghazi, Libya. There were 178 big bomber planes getting ready for the longest and lowest bombing mission ever. Baker was 36 years old and was the leader of the 93rd Bomb Group. He had been fighting for 11 months. Jerstad was 25 years old. He had already finished his required 25 missions 3 weeks earlier, and he volunteered to fly this mission as Baker's helper pilot. The target was the Ploesti oil refineries in Romania. These places made 30% of Nazi Germany's fuel. Military leaders predicted that half of the crews would not survive before the day ended. Operation Tidal Wave needed a 2,400-mile round trip at heights between 50 and 500 feet, as low as the treetops. The German Air Force and German gun crews had turned Ploesti into the most protected target in all of Europe. Earlier high-altitude attacks had failed. The only way to destroy the refineries was to fly straight through the defenses at the same height as the chimneys, drop bombs with delayed fuses, and hope the explosions didn't catch your own plane. The 8th Air Force had lost 47 B-24s during training for this mission. Pilots misjudged how high they were over water, flew into hills during low-level practice runs, and crashed into each other in tight groups. The commanders guessed they would lose 90 planes over the target. That meant 900 men. Baker knew these numbers. Jerstad knew them too. He had finished his tour and could have gone home to Oregon. Instead, he asked to fly one more mission. Baker needed pilots with experience. Jerstad was the operations officer and understood the mission plan better than anyone except Baker himself. Will they survive what's coming? Please hit that like button. It helps more people discover these stories. And subscribe. Back to Baker and Jerstad. Hell's Wench carried 10 crew members that morning. Navigator Harold Sweetman, Bombardier John McCormick, Engineer James Merritt, Radio Operator Cecil Fight, and 4 gunners. Every man understood the numbers. 1 out of every 2 planes wouldn't return. But Ploesti made 12 million barrels of refined fuel every year. Every day those refineries worked, German tanks rolled deeper into Russia, German submarines hunted Allied ships, and German fighter planes attacked bomber groups over Germany. Destroying Ploesti could shorten the war by months and save thousands of Allied lives. The mission was worth the cost. Baker had told his group the plan 3 times, stressing timing. The entire attack depended on 5 bomb groups reaching their targets at exactly the same time, 9:30 a.m. Romania time. This would spread out the defensive fire and overwhelm the gun crews. Any delay meant all the defenses would focus on one group. Any change from a flight plan meant disaster. Each group had specific refineries to hit. The 93rd would attack the Astra Romana and Uniria refineries. Baker's plane would lead the formation, set the example, and show his men the way through. At 7 o'clock, engines roared across Benghazi airfield. 178 B-24s lifted into the morning sky, formed up over the Mediterranean Sea, and turned north toward Romania. The formation stretched for miles at 19,000 feet altitude. Then they would drop to wave-top height over the Aegean Sea, stay low across Greece and Yugoslavia, and reach Ploesti below German radar. Baker settled into his seat. Jerstad took the co-pilot position. Hell's Wench flew in the lead spot with 17 planes from the 93rd following directly behind. 3 hours into the mission, a B-24 from the lead navigation group lost power over the Mediterranean. This plane was carrying the mission's lead navigator. It went down toward the water and tried an emergency landing. The bomber hit the waves at 140 miles per hour and broke apart. All crew members were lost. The entire operation had just lost its pathfinder. No backup navigator knew the complete route. Baker watched the formation continue north. Something was already wrong. The formation crossed the Greek coast at 9,000 feet and dropped to 500 feet over Yugoslavia. B-24s flew so low that pilots could see individual trees. Sheep ran away as bombers roared overhead. The plan required flying low to hide behind hills and mountains. German radar stations couldn't track planes flying below hilltops, but low altitude meant they used more fuel. Navigation mistakes became critical. A wrong turn at this height could send the entire formation into a mountainside. Baker checked his instruments. Fuel use was normal. Engines were running steady. Behind him, 17 B-24s from the 93rd stayed in tight formation. To his left and right, other bomb groups spread across the sky. The 44th, the 98th, the 376th, the 389th. 5 groups, 177 planes still flying, one target 30 minutes away. At 9:05 a.m. Romania time, the formation reached the starting point near Ploesti, the IP, the spot where bombers would turn east toward Ploesti. This was the critical navigation moment. Every group needed to identify landmarks, turret exactly the right moment, and follow the correct valleys toward their assigned refineries. Without the lead navigator, the mission commander's plane took over navigation duties. Baker watched the lead group begin their turn. They turned toward Bucharest. Wrong city, wrong direction. Baker saw the mistake immediately. The lead group had mistaken one valley for another, a simple navigation mistake at 500 feet altitude. But Bucharest was 30 miles southeast of Ploesti. The lead group was taking 3 bomb groups, over 100 planes, away from the target, away from the mission. The attack plan was falling apart. Baker grabbed the radio transmitter and tried to contact the mission commander. Radio discipline had been strict throughout the flight with minimal transmissions. German listening posts were tracking them. But this was an emergency. The mission was about to fail. Baker called repeatedly. No response. Either the lead plane wasn't listening to the radio, or they couldn't hear through radio interference. German jamming had started the moment the formation crossed into Romania. Static filled the airways. Jerstad looked at Baker. The decision was simple. Follow the lead group to the wrong target and waste the entire mission, or break formation, turn the 93rd toward Ploesti alone, and lead his 17 planes into the most heavily defended target in Europe without the planned support from other groups. No attack all at once, no split defenses. Every German gun would focus on the 93rd. Command had predicted 50% losses with the full formation attacking together. What would losses be with one group attacking alone? Baker made his decision in 5 seconds. He turned Wench hard left, away from the lead group, toward Ploesti. Behind him, every plane in the 93rd followed. 17 B-24s broke from the main formation. The original attack plan called for 94 bombers hitting Ploesti together. Now, Baker was leading 18 bombers toward targets designed to be attacked by 5 times that number. German radar operators watched the formation split. Flak battery commanders received urgent updates. American bombers approaching from the south. Small group, 18 planes. Altitude, 500 feet. Speed 210 miles per hour. Every available gun crew in Ploesti received the same order. Focus all fire on this group. Stop them before they reach the refineries. Baker flew toward the smokestacks of Astra Romana, 11 miles ahead, 10 minutes flying time. Jerstad looked through the co-pilot window. Black smoke was already rising over the city. Something else, too. Small dark shapes lifting from the ground around the refineries. Dozens of them, then hundreds. Barrage balloons with steel cables hanging beneath them, designed specifically to destroy low-flying bombers. The cables would tear wings, rip through the body of the plane, and tear engines from their mounts. Ploesti defenders had raised every balloon in the city. Wench was flying directly into a forest of steel. At 9:17 a.m., Wench entered the Ploesti defense zone at 470 feet altitude. The city spread out ahead. 7 major refineries, miles of pipelines, cracking towers, storage tanks, smokestacks pouring black smoke, and above everything, barrage balloons, 300 of them. Steel cables stretched from ground to balloon. Each cable was designed to catch plane wings, snap them off, and send bombers tumbling to the ground. Baker had no choice about altitude. The mission required bombing from chimney height. Delayed, fuses needed time to arm. If they dropped from normal bombing height, the bombs would explode before going deep into refinery buildings. The entire mission depended on flying low, flying through those cables. The 93rd crews had trained for this, practiced low-level bombing runs over desert targets in Libya. But training targets didn't shoot back. Training balloons didn't have steel cables. Behind Hell's Wench, 17 B-24s followed in tight formation. Nose gunners tracked the balloons ahead. Top turret gunners searched for fighters. The German Air Force had stationed 200 fighters at airfields around Ploesti. Messerschmitt 109s, Focke-Wulf 190s, Romanian IR-81s. Intelligence had predicted waves of fighter attacks during the bomb run. So far, no fighters appeared. German commanders were holding them back, waiting. The flak batteries would handle the bombers first. The first 88mm shell exploded 200 feet ahead of Hell's Wench. Black smoke, orange flash, shrapnel spraying outward. Baker flew through the blast. The plane shook. More explosions erupted across the sky. German gun crews had the range. The Ploesti defenses included 230 flak guns, 88s, anti-aircraft batteries, and machine gun nests on rooftops. Every gun opened fire at once. The sky filled with tracers, red lines streaking toward the formation, and black puffs of exploding shells. The wall of fire was so thick that pilots couldn't see through it. A balloon cable appeared directly ahead. Baker yanked the controls left. Hell's Wench banked hard. The cable passed 20 feet from the right wing. Another cable to the left. Baker rolled right, flying through the forest, dodging cables that appeared without warning through the smoke. Jerstad called out positions. Cable high left. Cable low right. Baker flew by instinct. The refineries were 3 miles ahead. 3 more minutes. The formation had to stay together. Had to reach the target. An 88 shell exploded beneath Hell's Wench. The explosion lifted the plane 30 feet. Shrapnel tore through the belly, punched holes in fuel tanks, and ripped through hydraulic lines. Red warning lights flashed across the instrument panel. Fuel pressure dropping in number 3 engine. Oil temperature rising in number 1. The plane was bleeding, but the engines still ran. The controls still responded. Baker kept flying. 2 miles from target. Another barrage balloon ahead. Baker aimed between 2 cables, calculated the gap. 40 feet clearance on each side. Enough room. He committed to the path. Then the plane jolted, hard impact on the right wing. The B-24 had clipped a cable Baker hadn't seen. The steel wire scraped along the wing's front edge, tore aluminum. The wire caught on the outboard engine cover and held. The balloon was now attached to Hell's Wench. 300 pounds of rubber and canvas dragging on the right wing, creating massive, uneven drag. The plane pulled right. Baker fought the controls, struggled to keep heading. Another shell exploded. This one hit directly. An 88mm round hit the right wing root and punched through the fuel tank. Aviation gas sprayed into the engine area. Hot metal, sparking electrical systems, leaking fuel. The mixture caught fire instantly. Orange flames erupted from the wing and spread toward the body of the plane. Hell's Wench was on fire. 1 mile from target. 60 seconds to the release point. Baker looked down and saw an open field below, flat, clear, perfect for emergency landing. They could set down safely. The entire crew could survive. Or they could continue the bomb run. Baker kept the nose pointed at Astra Romana refinery. The fire spread across the entire right wing. Flames reached back toward the body of the plane. The metal skin glowed red. Temperature inside the cockpit climbed. Smoke filled the interior. The crew could bail out. The open field below meant everyone could parachute safely. Or Baker could set the plane down, do an emergency landing, walk away. Mission failed, but 17 B-24s were following directly behind Hell's Wench. If Baker landed now, those planes would follow. The entire 93rd would give up. The mission would fail completely. Jerstad knew what Baker was thinking. He had flown 25 missions, survived the odds, earned his ticket home. Now he sat in a burning bomber with a choice, survival or mission. He didn't reach for the bailout lever, didn't suggest landing. He checked the bomb release panel, made sure the delayed fuses were armed, and prepared for the drop. Baker understood. They were continuing. The flames grew worse. Fire ate the right wing from engine to wingtip. The aluminum structure began failing. Rivets popped from heat stress. Metal panels curled. The wing was falling apart, but still made lift. The plane still flew. 45 seconds to target. The bomb bay doors were already open. Bombardier John McCormick lay flat in the nose, watched the refinery approach through the northern bomb site. Cracking towers, storage tanks, pipeline networks. The main buildings were dead ahead. Behind Hell's Wench, the 93rd Formation held together. Every pilot saw the flames. Every crew knew their lead plane was dying. But Baker hadn't turned away, hadn't landed. The formation followed. 17 B-24s flew through the flak fire, through the balloon cables, through smoke so thick that they could only see 100 feet ahead. They followed Hell's Wench because Baker and Jerstad were still flying. German gunners focused all their fire on the burning bomber. Every tracer, every shell. If they stopped the lead plane, the formation would break apart. 88mm rounds exploded continuously around Hell's Wench. One shell exploded so close that shrapnel shredded the left tail stabilizer. The plane yawed violently. Baker fought the controls, used rudder and aileron together, kept the nose steady. The bomb site needed stable flight. Any movement meant missed target, wasted mission, wasted lives. 30 seconds. The refineries filled the windscreen. Cracking towers rose 300 feet high. Hell's Wench flew between them at 400 feet altitude. Wings level, speed steady. The fire had now reached the body of the plane. Flames licked along the cockpit windows. Paint blistered. Glass cracked from heat. Oxygen masks gave them air to breathe, but the temperature was unbearable. Baker's hands were blistering on the control wheel. He held course. McCormick centered the crosshairs. The delayed fuse bombs would go into buildings before exploding, cause the most damage, and destroy the refining equipment. He waited for the exact release point, calculated the drop path, accounted for wind, altitude, and speed. The numbers lined up. He pressed the release. 4,000 pounds of high explosives dropped from the bomb bay and fell toward the Astra Romana facility. Hell's Wench jumped upward as the weight released. Behind Baker, the formation released at the same time. 18 planes, 72,000 pounds of bombs. The delayed fuses meant the explosions would happen in waves. First bombs going deep into buildings, then exploding, then the next wave, then the next. The entire refinery was about to be destroyed. But Hell's Wench was still in the blast area. Baker pulled back on the wheel, tried to gain altitude, get above the coming explosions. The right wing barely responded. Fire had destroyed the control surfaces. The plane climbed slowly, 100 feet per minute. Not enough. The bombs would explode in 18 seconds. The blast area extended 1,000 feet. Hell's Wench was 400 feet above ground, 500 feet past the target, still climbing, still burning. The wing structure was failing. The fire had reached the center fuel tanks. And below, 18 seconds had just run out. The first explosion erupted beneath Hell's Wench. A delayed fuse bomb exploded inside the main cracking tower. The building fell apart. Steel beams shot outward. The blast wave hit the burning B-24 like a wall. The plane tumbled, rolled 30 degrees right. Baker fought the controls and leveled the wings. More explosions followed, one after another as bombs went deep into refinery buildings before exploding. The entire Astra Romana facility was collapsing. Fireballs rose 300 feet. Black smoke mushroomed upward. The 93rd had hit the target perfectly. Behind Hell's Wench, the formation scattered. Each B-24 peeled away from the target area, looking for escape routes through the flak, through the smoke, through the balloon cables. Some planes made clean breaks, climbed fast, and turned south toward Libya. Others weren't as lucky. A B-24 from a 93rd hit a balloon cable at full speed. The wire caught the left wing and tore it completely off. The bomber rolled upside down, crashed into a storage tank, and exploded. 10 men died instantly. Another B-24 took a direct hit from an 88 shell. The round went into the bomb bay and exploded the remaining bombs still on their racks. The plane vanished in an orange fireball. Pieces scattered across 200 yards. No peres shots. No survivors. A third bomber flew straight through a flak wall. 20mm rounds stitched across the body, killed the pilot, and wounded the co-pilot. The plane nosed down, hit the ground at 200 miles per hour, and tumbled through a neighborhood. 14 civilians died alongside the crew. The 93rd was paying the predicted price. Command had guessed 50% losses with full formation support. Baker's group was attacking alone with 1/5 the planned planes against the full defensive power of Ploesti. The math was brutal. 18 bombers entered the target zone. 4 were already gone. 40 men dead. The survivors were still fighting their way out. Hell's Wench climbed through the smoke at 800 feet, still burning. The right wing was completely covered in flames. Fire had spread to the body of the plane. The cockpit filled with black smoke. Noble civility. Baker flew by instruments alone. Airspeed, altitude, heading. The gauges showed critical damage. Number 3 engine seized. Number 4 losing oil pressure. Number 1 running hot. Only number 2 worked normally. The plane was flying on 1 working engine and 3 dying ones. Jerstad checked the instruments, looked at fuel levels. Both right-wing tanks were empty, broken by flak. Leaking fuel had fed the fire. The left-wing tanks showed half full. Maybe 30 minutes of flying time left. The Mediterranean coast was 90 minutes south. They wouldn't make it. The plane was dying. But they had climbed to 800 feet, high enough for parachutes to work. The crew could bail out. All 10 men could survive, land in Romanian territory, become prisoners of war. But alive. Baker looked at their situation. The mission was complete. The 93rd had destroyed their assigned targets. Bombs had destroyed the Astra Romana refinery. The other bombers were escaping. Some would make it back to Libya. Some wouldn't. But the attack had worked. Germany's fuel supply was damaged. The cost had been huge. At least 4 planes lost, probably more. Hell's Wench was finished. No way to reach friendly territory. The smart decision was immediate bailout. Save the crew. But Baker knew the facts. Bailing out over Romania meant capture, questioning, prison camp, years locked up. Some crew members wouldn't survive that. Harsh conditions, disease, not enough food. And if Germany lost the war, which seemed more and more likely, some prisoners might never make it home. The SS had killed prisoners before. Could happen again. Baker did another calculation. Hell's Wench still flew. Damaged, burning, dying, but flying. If he could gain more altitude, the crew could bail out over Yugoslavia, partisan territory. Friendly forces worked there, rescued downed airmen, and helped them back to Allied lines. Higher altitude meant longer glide distance after the engines died. Better chance of reaching partisan zones. But gaining altitude meant staying in the burning plane longer. The fire was spreading. Time was running out. Baker pulled back on the wheel. Hell's Wench climbed slowly. 900 feet, 1,000 feet, 1,200 feet. Every 100 feet of altitude gave the crew better survival chances. But the climb cost time the burning plane didn't have. The fire had now eaten half the body of the plane. Flames burned through electrical systems. Radio went dead. Intercom failed. Baker could no longer talk to the crew, couldn't order bailout, couldn't organize evacuation. Each man would have to make his own decision. The engineer, James Merritt, stood in the cockpit doorway, watched Baker and Jerstad fight the controls, saw the flames spreading toward the cockpit, and felt the heat coming through the metal walls. He understood what Baker was trying to do. Gain altitude, give everyone a better chance. Merritt went back to his station, didn't bail out, stayed at his post, watched the dying engines, adjusted fuel mixture, moved fuel from damaged tanks to working ones, and bought them precious minutes. Behind Merritt, the 4 gunners stayed at their positions. Top turret gunner tracked the sky for enemy fighters. Waist gunners watched for chasing Messerschmitts. Tail gunners scanned behind them. No fighters appeared. The German Air Force had pulled back. German commanders knew Hell's Wench was finished. No need to waste bullets. The burning bomber would crash on its own. The gunners could see the ground through gaps in the smoke. Romanian countryside, fields, villages, enemy territory. They stayed at their stations. 1,500 feet. The plane shook violently. Number 4 engine seized completely. The propeller spun uselessly, created massive drag. Baker fixed it with rudder. The plane turned right. He fought at level. 3 engines left. Number 1 running on failing oil pressure. Number 2 still good. Number 3 restarted after cooling briefly. But the restart wouldn't last. The engine was damaged, running rough, making very little power. The right wing was breaking apart. The fire had burned through the main support beams, the parts that held weight. The wing bent upward under air pressure. Metal groaned. Rivets popped like gunshots. The wing was folding. When it failed completely, the plane would roll upside down and spin into the ground. No time for bailout. Everyone would die in the crash. Baker needed altitude before that happened. Needed to get high enough that when the wing broke, the crew could escape the spinning plane. 1,700 feet. They were 15 miles south of Ploesti now, still over Romania, still enemy territory, but closer to Yugoslavia. The partisan zones were 40 miles ahead. If they could keep this altitude for another 10 minutes, they would reach friendly territory. The crew could bail out safely, get rescued, and return to fight another day. Baker pushed the plane harder, demanded performance it couldn't give. The remaining engines screamed, overheated, began failing. Number 1 engine caught fire, different fire from the wing blaze. This one burned inside the engine cover. Engine oil caught fire. Flames shot from the cowling. The fire spread to number 2 engine, the only engine still making full power. Baker watched his last good engine start to burn. He had maybe 90 seconds before complete power loss. 90 seconds to gain every possible foot of altitude. He kept climbing. Bombardier McCormick lay in the nose, watched the ground pass beneath, and did the math. Airspeed dropping, altitude slowly increasing, rate of climb decreasing. The math was clear. They wouldn't make Yugoslavia. The engines would die before they crossed the border. The plane would crash in Romania. But McCormick didn't move toward the escape hatch, didn't get ready to bail out. He stayed at his station, trusted Baker's judgment. 1,900 feet. Number 2 engine died. Just stopped. No explosion. No big failure. The engine simply quit, starved of oil, seized from heat. Gone. Now Hell's Winch flew on 2 damaged engines. Number 3 running rough. Number 1 burning. The plane couldn't keep altitude anymore. Started going down 100 feet per minute, then 200. The descent got faster. Baker had run out of options. The crew had maybe 60 seconds to bail out before the plane became uncontrollable. He needed to give the order. But the intercom was dead. He couldn't tell him to jump. And the right wing chose that moment to fail. The right wing tore off at the root. The entire structure ripped away from the body of the plane. 28 feet of wing, 2 engines, fuel tanks, all gone in one sudden failure. The sudden loss of lift on one side rolled Hell's Winch violently. The plane snap-rolled left, went upside down in 2 seconds. The spinning force pinned everyone against the walls, made movement impossible. Escape hatches were now above the crew. Gravity worked against them. No one could reach the exits. Baker fought the controls uselessly. With one wing gone, air forces overpowered any control input. The rudder did nothing. Ailerons couldn't stop the roll. The plane was tumbling, spinning toward the ground in an uncontrollable fall. Through the windscreen, Baker saw earth and sky switching places rapidly. The horizon spun. The altitude gauge unwound. 1,800 feet, 1,600 feet, 1,400 feet. Falling at 3,000 feet per minute. The crew knew what was happening, felt the violent roll, understood the wing had broken off. Merritt grabbed for handholds, couldn't reach them. The spinning force threw him against the wall. The gunners tumbled through the plane's body, slammed into equipment, into each other, into the burning walls. McCormick in the nose watched the ground rush up. Calculated impact in 28 seconds. He didn't scream, didn't panic. Just watched. Jerstad stayed strapped in the co-pilot's seat. The harness held him secure despite the violent spinning. He looked at Baker. Both men knew this was the end. No bailout possible. No emergency landing. No survival. The plane was a spinning coffin. They had completed the mission, led the 93rd to the target, destroyed the refinery, kept flying when they could have landed safely. They made the choice. This was the result. 1,000 feet. The spin got faster. Air forces increased as airspeed built. The plane spun faster, 4 spins per second. The remaining left wing began failing under the stress. Metal screamed. The fire spread throughout the body of the plane, burned everything. The ammunition for the 50 caliber guns started exploding from heat. Rounds exploded randomly, sent bullets bouncing through the inside, added chaos to the disaster. The ground details became clear: trees erode, farm buildings, Romanian farmers working in fields. They looked up, saw the burning bomber spinning downward, black smoke trailing behind it in a spiral pattern. The sound was huge: screaming engines, rushing wind, exploding ammunition. The farmers ran, scattered away from where it would hit, knew what was coming. 600 feet. Hell's Wench finished its final spin. The nose pointed almost straight down. The remaining engines still ran, still pushed the plane faster toward the ground. Baker saw the impact point, a field bare earth. The plane would hit at over 300 miles per hour. The impact would be instant. No pain, no long death, just sudden ending. 300 feet. Jerstad reached across the cockpit and gripped Baker's shoulder. A final gesture, recognition. They had flown together, made the hard choice together, would die together. Baker nodded once, kept his hands on the controls. Died doing his job. Pilot to the end. Hell's Wench hit the earth at 9:47 a.m. Romania time. 3,000 pounds of remaining fuel exploded on impact. The explosion made a hole 15 feet deep and 40 feet across. Wreckage scattered across 200 yards. The plane completely broke apart. All 10 crew members died instantly. Lieutenant Colonel Addison Baker, Major John Jerstad, Navigator Harold Sweetman, Bombardier John McCormick, Engineer James Merritt, Radio Operator Cecil Fight, for gunners whose bodies were identified by dog tags found in the wreckage. The volunteer who didn't have to fly. The commander who led from the front. And 8 men who followed them into hell. Gone. Romanian authorities arrived within the hour and recovered what was left. 10 Americans who had flown 1,500 miles to destroy oil refineries, who had succeeded, who had paid the highest price. The bodies were buried in a local cemetery. The graves were marked with wooden crosses. The war continued without them. But their mission had changed everything. Operation Tidal Wave ended at 10:32 a.m. on August 1st, 1943. 178 B-24 Liberators had left Benghazi that morning. 125 returned. 53 planes lost. 310 airmen killed. 54 captured. 108 wounded. The single most costly air mission in American military history up to that point. The losses were worse than even the worst predictions. Command had guessed 50% losses. The actual number was 30% for planes. But among the crews that pushed their attacks to the target, losses reached 60%. The 93rd Bomb Group paid the heaviest price. Addison Baker led 18 bombers toward Ploesti after breaking formation. Only 11 returned to Libya. 7 planes lost. 70 men dead or missing. But those 18 bombers had completely destroyed their assigned targets. The Astra Romana refinery was shut down for 3 months. The Uniria facility stayed closed for 6 months. Delayed fuse bombs had gone deep into critical equipment. Cracking towers collapsed. Pipeline networks broke. Storage tanks burned for days. German engineers looked at the damage and reported that complete rebuilding would take years. Across Ploesti, the other bomb groups got similar results. The refineries that made 1/3 of Nazi Germany's fuel were damaged. Daily production dropped from 12 million barrels per year to less than 4 million. The shortage created immediate problems for German operations. German Air Force missions decreased. Tank divisions got reduced fuel. Submarines spent less time on patrol. The strategic impact spread throughout the German military. Some historians estimate Operation Tidal Wave shortened the war in Europe by 3 months. But the cost troubled military planners. 53 planes, 310 men. The math was brutal. Command wondered whether the results justified the losses, whether destroying oil refineries was worth the price in American lives. The debate continued throughout the war. No clear answer came. The oil was crucial. The losses were huge. Both facts stayed true. The Medal of Honor citations arrived 6 months later. 5 men received America's highest military award for actions during Operation Tidal Wave. More medals of honor than any other single-air operation in history. Lieutenant Colonel Addison Baker received his after his death. The citation said that he flew his burning plane to the target despite having a chance to land safely, led his group through the heaviest defenses in Europe, completed the mission at the cost of his life and the lives of his crew. Major John Jerstad received a Medal of Honor after his death as well. The citation noted he volunteered for the mission after finishing his required tour, served as Baker's co-pilot, stayed at his post in the burning plane, made the choice to continue when survival was possible, and died completing the mission. He was 25 years old, had finished his war, could have gone home to Oregon. Instead, he flew one more mission, never returned. The other 8 crew members of Hell's Wench received no individual medals. Their names appeared in casualty lists. Harold Sweetman, John McCormick, James Merritt, Cecil Fight, and 4 gunners whose families got telegrams explaining their sons had died in action over Romania. Standard wartime notifications. Nothing that explained what they had done. Nothing that explained they had flown a burning bomber through the worst defenses in Europe because their commanders asked them to. If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor, hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about pilots who chose the mission over survival. Real people. Real sacrifice. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Are you watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia? Our community reaches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer. You're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching. And thank you for making sure Lieutenant Colonel Addison Baker and Major John Jerstad don't disappear into silence. These men deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.